Rohingyas are there for centuries together.
Our father, mother, our forefather is an ancestor, citizen of Myanmar.
2015 সালে আমাদেরকে বলছে যে তোমরা অবৈধ অনুপ্রবেশকারী বাঙালি।
পলিসিটা হচ্ছে এই ধরনের ডিভাইড অ্যান্ড রুল।
Their identity crisis is intentionally made, propagated and executed.
They have killed the people, they have burned the villages, they have raped the women. This cannot be a part of military operation.
You kill the identity, then you are actually also being complicit to genocide.
We don't know how many people have been killed, but we do have some idea of how many have been burnt and chased out of their homes.
The world's fastest growing humanitarian crisis as thousands of Rohingya refugees are spending a fourth night stranded near the border with Bangladesh.
Let's not forget that the whole world is watching. What happens here has global implications.
Our people have shared their shelters, their food, their clothing with these people. How do you value that?
More than 600 HIV positive cases detected.
Nobody becomes a refugee by choice. They're forced to become refugees.
Our concern is the safe return and the earliest possible date for the start of repatriation.
এটি সম্পূর্ণভাবে মিয়ানমার এবং তার নিজস্ব নাগরিক রোহিঙ্গাদের মধ্যকার একটি সমস্যা। তাদের নিজেদেরই এর সমাধান করতে হবে।
The military launched a violent crackdown leading to arbitrary killing of Rohingyas, including children and the elderly, gang rapes of women, inhuman torture, and razing of village after village that forced the people to seek shelter in Bangladesh, unleashing a humanitarian crisis unprecedented in recent history.
As a result, we saw overnight a wave of Rohingyas crossing over to Bangladesh with barely anything in their hands.
This exodus, it is unbelievable, unseen in the world history.
1970 হাত মারে গোয়া 1991 মাদে এ গিয়া আইরে না থাকা আইবাদে হিয়া গোলরাইয়ে 2004 তো গোলরাইয়ে 2016 তো গোলরাইয়ে 2017 মাদে লাভ আনারে রাতে।
The world's fastest growing humanitarian crisis as thousands of Rohingya refugees are spending a fourth night stranded near the border with Bangladesh.
How extremist Buddhists are thought to have taken part in the military crackdown in Burma's Rakhine state.
Their first footsteps on safe soil.
The Rohingyas are one of the most persecuted minorities in the world.
These people are totally dependent on local charities. Either that or they'll just go hungry.
A report by the Associated Press or AP has confirmed the presence of more than 5 mass graves in Myanmar.
The UN calls them one of the world's most persecuted minorities. More than 1 million people caught up in a cycle of violence and poverty.
We don't know how many people have been killed, but we do have some idea of how many have been burnt and chased out of their homes.
The brutal crackdown by Myanmar military on 25th August 2017 at northern Rakhine state, targeting Rohingya community, resulted in the biggest exodus that created the world's largest refugee camp at Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Numerous international leaders, personalities, celebrities, and heads of leading organizations have visited the site, met with the victims who shared their experiences and expressed their opinions.
The discrimination against and the persecution of the Rohingya minority has continued unabated in full view of the world.
This issue must be resolved through humanitarian aid and politics. Such an atrocity in this age is unbelievable, and it's all happening before the eyes of the entire world. We have come here to help and announce the situation here to the international community.
Hello everyone, I'm Priyanka Chopra and I'm live today from Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. This is one of the biggest refugee camps in the world at the moment, and I'd like to take a second to show you the expanse of it.
It is very important we are here because what the Rohingya people are going through are despicable and is very, very tragic. It should not be allowed. Every single one of them deserves to have the human rights that it should be given to them.
I'm therefore thankful that here in Bangladesh, Rohingya refugees have their existence recognized and are being provided by the government and UNHCR with documentation and proof of their identity.
I went to Bangladesh last March as a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador to see what I could possibly contribute in responding to the massive humanitarian needs unfolding there. Nothing could have prepared me for the extent and depth of the suffering I saw.
This is a major humanitarian crisis, which looks like ethnic cleansing. And it is something for which the Burmese authorities, and especially the military, must take full responsibility.
The United States continues to put pressure on Myanmar to ensure that those conditions actually exist. We recently sanctioned senior members of the Myanmar military and their immediate families on top of sanctions in the past to really forcefully present that message. And we'll continue to do so. We'd love to see other members of the international community join us.
The campaign of violence against the Rohingya continues, with the security forces slowly bleeding the remaining Rohingya population and continuing to force them to flee to Bangladesh.
Because Myanmar has refused access to human rights investigators, the current situation cannot yet be fully assessed, but the situation remains or seems a textbook example of ethnic cleansing.
We are visiting the Rakhine state, we are visiting the area, so after that we will assess, we will have discussions in New York at the Security Council to see what are the next steps. Also, I would like to highlight that recently there has been an appointment by the Secretary General of the Special Envoy. So all these issues we need to evaluate and see the situation in the context.
Rohingya came from Myanmar, and the solution must lie in Myanmar. They must be allowed to go home in conditions of safety. It may take some time, but we would like to hear from the government of Myanmar how it wishes to work with the international community, and we will do everything we can as the Security Council to support progress and trying to come together to take decisions that help the Rohingya.
More than 1.1 billion Rohingyas are settled already. It is with a sense of great dismay and concern, and that I saw myself type of Rohingya refugees. There should be no such discrimination.
Those people, you see, who sort of harassing some Muslim, then they should remember Buddha. I think such circumstances, Buddha helping, definitely help to those poor Muslim. So still I feel that. So very sad, very sad.
We'll not close our hearts. We'll not look at the other side.
La presenza di Dio oggi anche si chiama Rohingya.
The presence of God today also calls in this way.
First of all, listening to the terrible stories of massive violence, of killings, of rape, of torture, of houses or villages burned. It is probably one of the most tragic stories in relation to the violation, the systematic violation of human rights.
During the course of sheltering Rohingyas on humanitarian ground, Bangladesh is facing one of the biggest challenges ever. While the international agencies have joined and started working together to maintain more than 1 million refugees, the world is also watching the evolving situation every day. What happens at the Bangladesh border has a larger impact all over the world.
What I am seeing that from the beginning, especially in 2017, the international emotion was very high. Now it's decreasing day by day. Now it became a common issue like other refugee problem across the world. So that will be a dangerous part. How can you maintain these people, huge number of people, more than 1 million people, and their health, their education, their other needs?
Despite the fact that 2 years have gone by since the big exodus, the crisis has not fallen off the global agenda. Some parts of the world it is higher, some parts of the world it is lower in the newspapers, but people still seem to be interested and people seem to still care about this, which is very important.
In terms of the humanitarian support, I suppose it has been a little bit a test case for Bangladesh because in terms of the quick influx, especially partly in 2016 and 2017, while there was already another large population in Bangladesh, and in an area which is already impoverished and a large population, local population as well, at the same time with existing reserved forest area and pressure on the local economy, local resources, this is a test case for the world, not just for Bangladesh. So for international agencies and the Bangladesh government, it had to try out, we had to try out different approaches in dealing with the crisis, which was sort of like Zoom. We had a big influx of people, immediate response required. Of course, we saw voluntary involvement of individuals and agencies. So that was a bit chaotic in the beginning, especially in 2017.
The government is in the lead of the response. We're in a supporting role, but there are UN agencies, there are international NGOs, there are national NGOs, there are local community-based organizations, big international development actors and financial institutions like the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. And having that machinery work extremely well and efficiently together, it does present a challenge, but I think the good intent is there and the achievements are obvious. I see that those who visited Bangladesh in late 2017 and saw the very beginning of the operation, and those who came then the second time in the summer of 2018, and who are now returning now to Bangladesh and seeing what's been achieved, actually leave quite satisfied that a lot of progress has been made and that the operation has become quite stable.
সারা পৃথিবীতে আমরা প্রায় ৪৫ লক্ষ পর্যন্ত রোহিঙ্গা আছি, বর্তমান বাংলাদেশে ১২ লক্ষ পর্যন্ত আছি। বিশেষ করে আমাদের ভবিষ্যৎ কী হবে, আমাদের প্রজন্মের ভবিষ্যৎ কী হবে, আজও পর্যন্ত আমরা কিছু জানি না।
Bangladesh received nearly 1 million people within a period of 3 months. And we can tell in statistical terms there was not excess mortality, people didn't die, people didn't starve, there were not epidemic disease outbreaks. So that's the first thing to say is lives were saved. There's also been a lot of improvement on the ground in terms of the ability to respond to people's needs. So the situation isn't perfect. Today the monsoon rains are very strongly hitting Cox's Bazar, but the situation of the people is much, much better than it was two years ago. But I think the thing that's most important is the part that you don't see. The people, when they were in Rakhine State, were very oppressed. They were unable to assemble, to communicate with each other. Then they came and they were traumatized. Now you see something different in the camp. You see people engaging in their communities, working together, volunteering to reach out and find the more vulnerable members of the community, volunteering to be part of teams that respond to landslides and other natural disasters. even men volunteering to be role models within the community against violence against women.
Let's not forget that the whole world is watching. What happens here is not just relevant to Bangladesh and Myanmar. What happens here has global implications. This is not just about Rohingyas, this is about all refugees. And thirdly, while we're looking for a long-term solution, let's not forget about the immediate humanitarian needs on the ground. This crisis needs continued funding. This crisis needs continued advocacy and political support and continued investment of resources, right? We cannot forget that while the long-term solution is being negotiated, and we all very much hope that it will happen sooner rather than later, there are things we need to do and continue to do right now in Cox's Bazar, and for that we need resources.
It's remarkable that the government of Bangladesh welcomed such a large number of refugees at a point in time where all around the world we're seeing the opposite. So that is obviously something that the world needs to continue to take notice of, and therefore stay with the refugees, stay with the government of Bangladesh, stay with the host communities that are very much feeling the impact of this crisis.
I would like to express many thanks to Bangladesh government and the people of Bangladesh. They have shown one thing, firstly, generosity and hospitality. We Rohingya people, we will never forget about what Bangladesh people of Bangladesh and Bangladesh government supported us.
The international community, which I interpret as states, that they have to play a bigger role in that. In terms of international agencies, they provide some of the support, the humanitarian support, and coordinate with the government. That has come. So in that sense, the states, the different states, have to some extent provided this support for humanitarian agencies, but not necessarily that they as a state took the responsibility to resolve it more at a political level.
And with that, in 2 years, as I see it, there are regional and international strategic complexities arising out of this whole issue, particularly capitalizing or centering the Rakhine, which is very importantly placed all along Bay of Bengal and the confluence of Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean, which today is the most sought after water body, ocean in the whole of the world. So we are in a kind of a hotbed. The strategic contest which we can see is emerging between China, India, and US and the West. So we are some kind of a sandwiched in between.
We know that about the Kofi Annan mission, you know that they have a specific recommendation to solve these long-standing crises. The number one is that the Rohingya people should get their nationality. But I'm not seeing any effort from the Myanmar side to take any step on that line. Actually, the recommendation done by Kofi Annan Commission. This commission is actually formed by Myanmar government, and they want to solve this problem, but they are not taking any action to solve this problem. That is the problem.
I think it's very important to give people hope for their future. When you've awoken the spirit of the Rohingya people, because they're living in relative security now in Bangladesh, this is a very positive thing. They are having a much stronger sense of community of who they are as a people. But the challenge will be is if they don't see a way forward for themselves, particularly young people. If young people don't have an opportunity to learn or to work or to have the skills they need to build a future for themselves in Myanmar, then they will become frustrated. And then we may start to see the kind of security challenges that Bangladesh is most concerned about. So whether in Myanmar or in Bangladesh, we need to address those problems today in order to build solutions for tomorrow.
As a global crisis, Bangladesh tries to show it to the world that every country, every organization has a role to play to solve the crisis, including Myanmar. In today's world, what you see in Afghanistan, what we are seeing in Iraq, what we are seeing in Libya and in Syria, some force may exploit the religious sentiment and grow stronger, some sort of religious extremism or insurgency you would see, which might link up with the other group. Remember that Myanmar is fighting insurgency for last 70 years, and there's a new phenomena which are coming. Then we find there's a contest between China and India and Rakhine, North Rakhine and South Rakhine. That is becoming more complex.
What you've got to be careful about is creating circumstances in which there will be a very much more significant insurgency that you generate. I think the Rohingya have been extraordinarily compliant as a community. Yes, there may be some individuals that you'd be worried about, but they should be seen as individuals, and you should not create a greater problem.
I can safely say without any reservation that I've been profoundly impressed by how local NGOs, international NGOs, UN, Bangladesh government and others have come together to respond to this crisis. It is a highly complex humanitarian emergency. It's a very difficult crisis with very vulnerable people. Remember, the majority are women and children. Yes. Okay, so in such confined space, in such a short time, it is really unprecedented. And despite all these difficulties, if you look at all the key indicators, and the two main ones being no excess mortality, no excess morbidity, I think by all standards this has been a success. Far from perfect, but a success. And I think this is a good example of how everyone can come together to deliver for the people.
Through constant reports by the international media, a humanitarian appeal of the cause and effect has reached across the world, but the challenge remains for Bangladesh to focus with priority and to gain continuous support in resolving the situation.
People have shared their shelters, their food, their clothing with these people. How do you value that? Local people became minority right now.
The tension between the Rohingyas and the local people is going up every day.
More than 600 HIV positive cases detected.
Bangladesh need to also protect his own citizen and also maintain the rights of their own citizen.
উকিয়ার মানুষ যেটা দেখিয়েছে সেটা তো বিশ্বের অন্য কোথাও এই নজির স্থাপন করতে পারে নাই.
Quite a lot of effort was made by Bangladesh. You have Bangladeshi officials working every day side by side with us.
We proved that we are the best relief manager in the world.
ক্রাইসিসটা ঘটাইছে মায়ানমার, এটার সমাধান করতে হবে মায়ানমারকে.
They should not have allowed the army or their law enforcement agency to attack the common people.
For more updates, subscribe and press the bell icon on YouTube app and never miss another update.
Come on.